Seattle has recently passed a law mandating a minimum wage for delivery app drivers, impacting major players like DoorDash, Instacart, and Uber Eats. Instacart revealed that under this law, their drivers would earn over $26 an hour. This legislation marks a significant shift affecting drivers and the restaurants that depend on their services. So what does this mean for your restaurant? How are drivers reacting to the changes? And what are the implications for your customers? We'll dig into these questions and more on today's episode. Let's grow. Welcome to the Restaurant Growth Show podcast, where we talk about how operators can use technology to grow their business. We've got a lot to talk about in this episode, but first, let's introduce our co-host. With more than 25 years of experience, Jose Albis has successfully founded and operated companies in software and hospitality. Lastly, who am I? My name is Gordon. I am your host. I have over 16 years in the food service industry with more than a decade in technology startups. This podcast is sponsored by Dine Pricing, real-time restaurant profitability. Dine Pricing uses AI to improve restaurant profitability by dynamically updating menus across digital channels like Uber Eats, DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, you know it. Jose, what's going on today?
Today it's polar vortex, snow, ice, rain, you name it. All cold things. All things cold.
All things cold, especially for a Colombian. You're probably not enjoying this winter in particular. Anytime there is a polar vortex. I'm a Canadian. I don't like it. But as a Colombian, you must be feeling the pinch.
I think I'm used to it by now, but that doesn't mean that I know all the tricks or that I always have them in mind. I went for a lot of walks yesterday, and I was beat. At the end of it, it was such an exercise, way more than I felt it, more than I expected. So
that's fair. So you went trudging through the snow. You weren't like me. You didn't stay cozy indoors and just watch the snowfall from the inside.
No. I did errands, picked up things, went to the grocery store. Then like it was normal, but those little micro muscles all over the body, like it's amazing.
We'll dig into Jose's micro muscles in another episode. So back to the topic at hand here. What does this new legislation mean for restaurants? Let's break it down. If your restaurant operates in Seattle, the immediate impact is tangible. With delivery apps now obliged pay drivers a minimum rate, the cost of offering delivery services is likely to rise. You might see this reflected in higher fees from these delivery platforms. The challenge here is twofold. Firstly, how do you absorb these increased costs? Do you pass them on to the customer through higher menu prices or a delivery surcharge, or do you cut into your margins to keep prices stable? Jose, what would you do if you were in this position? How should restaurants react to this increase? Should they absorb the cost increases? Do they pass it along? Is it a hybrid? What's your take?
I think you just pointed out to something interesting, which is what would a hybrid be? I think that there is something more here that could be done. That's my thoughts. And it may be on the delivery companies. It may be through legislation. There's also like the restaurants taking action of some sorts. Maybe the restaurant associations and can have a bigger voice. But I think it's important to keep in mind that there is, and it is close to my heart, the drivers. What's up? That I think that it's a great news for them. I think that it's not $26 US, which basically would mean like $30 Canadian. And that is good on that side. I think that the delivery companies can still do more and without having to necessarily impact the restaurateur themselves.
Right. I should point out here, in case it wasn't clear before, this legislation is specific to Seattle only at this point. So the Canadian drivers really wouldn't be affected. However, this could be a sign of changes to come, and we'll touch on those topics, what it could mean for the rest of North America or globally for that matter. So secondly, the challenge here is how are restaurants going to maintain customer satisfaction amidst these changes? So let's say your restaurant passes the cost on to the customer, which is likely going to happen. We need to understand that the customer is still king here, and we can't just just simply pass along every cost increase that restaurants incur onto the customer, there's going to be some backlash. What's your take on how restaurants should or shouldn't be passing on the cost to customers?
I think that maybe more controls, and in the sense that having more control over the minimum orders, having more control over distance that they serve, it would be something that could be beneficial for everyone, because that way certain things are guaranteed. And even though it may have an impact in the behavior of the consumer, you said they're king, right? Consumers king, but sometimes that has an impact as well. What is it that you let them do? What is it that do you let them make orders that actually hit everyone in the ecosystem except them? Or how do you change that? How much can you give away without losing them as a client? And this is the other important thing. Who are they losing the client to? Is it to the actual restaurant? Is it to the actual app? That is the question that needs to be solved as well.
Yeah. And how would this affect first party online ordering as well? Is that going to drive more orders directly to the restaurant's website? Is that going to increase pickup and drive through orders? There's a lot that's happening here that I think within Seattle we're going to see sort of this test environment. Raising the minimum wage for these gig workers should be very interesting. Jose, I know delivery is close to you. In the early days when you founded Modern Online Ordering, you tested out delivery. You tested out delivery in those early days. What's the impact for the drivers here?
Well, so back in my day when I did it, we only had to keep the dishes, and it was so early that they would be throwing money at me and the few drivers that were doing it. So as I was researching and taking note, and I would look at the whole ecosystem, like the restaurants and some system that they had about impact and who was responsible for it. But there's something here that I keep going to, which is if the client is actually the app client, is someone that goes to the app, orders from a restaurant. But we know, and especially because you and I have experience in third party to first party, there is a loyalty that is stronger to the app sometimes, a lot of the times, especially in the younger generations, than to the restaurant themselves. So I think that there should be a more and clear responsibility that these delivery apps have to take into account that actually those clients are them. They own the most of the data about these clients. The restaurant is just part of the ecosystem that they control, that they manage, and therefore they should be the ones finding the first ones in finding solutions to this. It's not that they're not making money. It's not like they couldn't do things to ease the situation for restaurants and drivers. Yesterday, I was walking so much in the snow and stuff, but I kept seeing these drivers with their little dingy cars, with this polar vortex that we're in. I could see, the struggle. Like, I was just concerned about some of these people that were in a lot of snow with these cars with tiny wheels, trying to get and going through. That takes a lot of gas, that takes a lot of effort, that it takes a lot of risk, and really takes a lot of time. I was sharing with someone as we were walking that I remember one time I had someone order, and I will not forget because I almost get stuck forever, ordered a wrap from McDonald's.
Yeah, okay, right? Yeah, a McWrap. Yeah, McDonald's, if you want to sponsor us, reach out.
Not a combo. Okay, not a combo, just the wrap.
Just a single wrap. Okay.
A single wrap. And no tip. So I was gonna get paid $5. And I looked and I'm like, oh my God, like literally 15-minute drive. And so I go, and then it turns out there was snow this time. And Victoria, it doesn't last long, but then the ice is thick.
Yes.
And I go to deliver it, and it turns out that it's uphill. Like this is getting higher and higher and higher and higher. And all of a sudden, it was an angle that my car couldn't make it. It just kept slipping. And so I parked and started to walk, and I read, and it was still a kilometer away. So I had to call and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I cannot do this. And then trying to get out of that area, because there was an uphill as well, it was almost impossible. So the time that I wasted that for $5 that I actually didn't get, with the risk of that if I was stuck, then I would have to pay $150 for a tow truck to pull me out.
Right.
It's ridiculous. So when it comes to technology solutions, for example, if the delivery apps were able, and I'm sure they can, use artificial intelligence, for example, to read what the weather is, the area, the altitude, control and measure that this person shouldn't be ordering a 15-minute drive order for a wrap.
Yeah, that you make a really good point there. They have even more data than the rest of us. All of our tech companies and our listening devices, they have the ability to anticipate problems such as this. A tiny little order. What was the total of the order when you picked it up? The dollar.
I
Like
we don't have
$10.
time to do that. I
Yeah,
didn't.
exactly. Right. So yeah, my point is, my point is this: it's a really minuscule order. Somebody's at home. Is during a blizzard or an icy night, and they just want, for whatever reason, they want this McWrap. McDonald's, get at us, and it's dangerous for the driver to go driving in that particular neighborhood.
Yeah.
Why can't these ginormous big delivery platforms, why can't there be some sort of indication that, or notification to the customer saying, you know what, this is not reasonable considering the conditions outside, considering the size of your order, how important is your order to you right now, right? I think that's a really great point that you bring up.
Yeah, no, I think that there is something there that can be done, because it's, some of these companies claim that you're going to do a minimum. And for the most part, they do. It may not be the 30 Canadian or the 26 US. They also even it up. So if you have a good hour where you end up with $40 because for whatever reason there were good orders and good tippers, and then it turns out that then they throw you a $10 an hour the next hour to even it up to 25.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
the algorithm in sending you, the driver, new orders, they're probably biased, trying to reduce their costs, correct?
Well, they make sure that there's kind of like in the commitment that they have, but that has other implications for the driver as well. Again, more risk, more time, wasted time. But usually, getting there's the gas cost. There's like you go within an hour, you're driving a lot, and to then like only $10. It shows two things. One, that they even it up because at the end they are the ones that get the advantage, and two, that they can do more.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm thinking back to our episode on tipping and tipping culture in North America.
Right.
And I really harped on the fact that these delivery companies like DoorDash need to absorb more of the cost.
Yep.
The bottom line, because in the opening of the show here, I mentioned Instacart revealed that under this law, their drivers would earn over $26 per hour. There is a press release in regards to this statement from Instacart. And basically what they're saying is, boo-hoo, we've got to pay our drivers more. This affects us in so badly. Oh my God, $26 per hour. Okay, I understand that is a significant jump, but honestly, who are we supposed to feel sorry for? Big delivery?
Yeah.
Or the average restaurant operator or the average consumer? I'm sorry, Instacart. I'm sorry, DoorDash, Uber Eats. You guys need to do more and stop passing your costs on to the little guys. Enough is enough. Okay.
Exactly.
This really, it really, I don't want to say grinds my gears because that's kind of cheesy, but it pisses me off.
And this is the thing. There is so much data, like you were saying. There is so much data. Like, do you think they don't know who the tippers are and the non-tippers? Yeah. Right? So they could balance that out as well. Or there is so much that can be done with all that data. And we're passionate about data. So it's giving them tips here, basically.
Exactly. They need to open up that black box and look at their algorithm and start making some changes, because they cannot continue to put pressure on the restaurant operators, our listeners, the average Jane and Joe Blow who are ordering this food, and the often forgot party here, which is the drivers themselves. Enough is enough. This is Big Delivery's problem, and they need to stop complaining and start being proactive about absorbing some of this cost. So let's move on. We've got a couple other topics that we want to talk about here. Let's think about the implications outside of Seattle. So this type of legislation may be a sign of things to come. So what if your restaurant isn't in Seattle? You might think this doesn't affect you. However, this legislation could very well be setting a precedent for other cities that might follow. The gig economy is under scrutiny globally, with many advocating for better pay and conditions for gig workers, just like we mentioned. If similar laws are adopted in other regions, the impact on delivery costs could become a widespread challenge for the restaurant industry. This possibility means it's crucial for restaurant owners everywhere to start considering how they would adapt to such changes. While I do agree with this statement, I still want to come back and I want to point my finger at big delivery and say we can't simply rely on restaurant operators adapting to these increased costs. They're spread thin enough, and so are drivers, okay? While it is incredibly important for any business today, not just restaurants, to be able to adapt to market changes, legislation, new laws, extreme weather events, yes, businesses do need to adapt, and they need to think more agile than they ever have in the history of the planet. They need to. But we also need to consider big delivery and these big corporations that they are not taking responsibility for cost. And enough is enough. Okay. Jose, what do you want to add?
I think the restaurant will have to do what they need to do.
Yes.
Right? You said it. Thin margins. The drivers are human beings trying to make a buck, but also they have a sense of service. Because we're serving someone that is hungry. And the users, which are king, they can be stimulated to new behaviors. And most importantly, the third parties have so much data that they can do a better ecosystem that they're doing right now for everyone.
Absolutely. Well said, my friend. That's all the time we have for this episode. I'm going to end with these thoughts. Responding to a new law in Seattle by adapting pricing and services is crucial, not just for immediate challenges, but as a proactive strategy in a rapidly evolving industry. This is an opportunity for innovation and setting your restaurant apart. Remember, success hinges on agility and forward thinking. Embrace these changes as stepping stones, not barriers. We'd love to hear your approach. Share your thoughts with us in the comments. That's all the time we have for this episode. Until next week, say goodbye, Jose.
Goodbye, Jose.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.